Well, good morning, everyone. I think the four of us are standing between you and churros, from what I understand, and no pressure. Okay, so, I think stories are incredibly important in this field and in the process, and we are so fortunate to have three former clients who've agreed to come join us and talk about their stories and how the system has, impacted them. I want to start by saying that we also have a story in probation, and you've heard a lot about that this morning. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge what the system looked like before they got here. I remember working in Sutter County when SB 678 happened, and was a journey level supervisor at the time, and I had spent my entire line career in juveniles. And I went to my friend Dave Clemens, who's here in Sutter, and I was trying to wrap my head around how we did adult supervision. Dave's nervous. He didn't know I was telling this story. And I remember Dave telling me at the time, as we were trying to wrap our head around these progressive thoughts that our chief had at the time about, really working with people differently and building a rapport and frankly, having the money to have any kind of programming available to be helpful. And I said, what was adult probation like before this? And I vividly remember Dave telling me a story about, when they would have free time with their hundreds of people that they would have on caseloads, they'd go find the biggest green file. Now you're chuckling. We'd go find the biggest green file, and then we'd go find that person and catch them doing wrong. I'll save some of the more colorful words. And that probably sounds a little dark for the tone of this meeting, but I'm proud to be part of a field, and you guys should be proud to be part of a field that has evolved and moved past that point, and to a point to where we are today, where we have an opportunity to sit here and listen to your guys' stories and how incredible they are, and that this is what success looks like today. That success is not just catching people doing wrong because they didn't do what we told them, but it's about connecting with you in a way that helps you move forward. So with that, this is Mindy.
Hello, everyone.
A little greeting for Mindy. Mindy, from what I understand, your relationship with your PO was really critical to your journey. So I want to hear your story, and how was probation a part of that story?
So the relationship that I developed with my probation officer was extremely impactful to my success and to the person that I am today. I'm going to try and refrain from crying. I'll never forget the day that I met Kelly. I was in custody, and I had applied for the CCC program in El Dorado County. At this point, I had nothing else to lose in my life, and I was willing to try whatever I could to change the way that I was living. And I was called down to booking, and normally that's not the best sign when you're in custody. So I went down there, and there Kelly was, and we sat down and we talked, and she told me that I was accepted into the CCC, and that I was going to be going to treatment because I had expressed to her that I had the substance abuse disorder that I could not control. And, this was my 5th time that year, I think it was, back in custody for violations, because no matter what intentions I had for myself when I was going to get out, I always told myself, I'm going to do it different this time. I lacked the life skills that I needed to actually make that change. And, I was so excited, yet so nervous, but I made the decision that I was going to do whatever I could, and I was going to try my hardest. And, throughout the CCC, me and Kelly's relationship didn't start off smoothly. I had a hard time relinquishing my control. And that was based on fear, of the authoritative figure, that always put me back in jail. And I was raised in a household, that criminal activity and substance abuse was normalized. So that was something that was learned from a very young age. But Kelly, she always she brought, in our one-on-one contact, she would bring me in and she would explain, or she would sit there and she would talk to me. And, after some time, I developed this trusting relationship for her. And I'll never forget the time she came to treatment and to visit me, and she told me, all right, Mindy, it's time for you to get in the passenger seat, and it's time for me to be in the driver's seat. And that was the day that I was like, okay, maybe she does have my best interest at heart. Like, maybe she really does want to see me succeed. And our relationship grew from there, and I am extremely grateful for the relationship that Kelly and I have. Still till this day, I call Kelly before I call my own family to share my victories that I'm experiencing in my life, and also to share, to call her when I'm struggling. I have no one else to talk to. She's always there for me. And I'm just extremely grateful for everything that this program has given me.
Thank you. We all sincerely appreciate the bravery that you guys show coming up here, and it means a lot to us. I mean, this is why we do this work. So thank you for that. Kylie's looking down. She's thinking, wow.
I don't even, oh, this is on. Okay, cool.
Yeah, setting the bar. You got your mic?
Yep. We're
Good to go.
Good to go.
So we heard a lot about the relationship that Mindy had with Kelly, and I'm curious if the experience was the same for you, and what did your journey look like? Because I think what my observation has been is that change is very different for everyone, and sometimes when you get to the point where you're up here as someone who's teaching back to us about how we can do better, more meaningful work, some of the people have gone through a very quick epiphany where they just kind of had a change. They were lucky for whatever reason, something big happened, and now they want to live differently. For most people, that's not the case, and it's kind of up and down. So I want to hear about, your situation and what kind of programs helped with that, and how did probation help with that?
Yeah, my journey was a long journey, and it did not start out easy. I, had been struggling with drug addiction pretty much my whole life. When I finally got arrested, I was 22 maybe, and had no previous charges, nothing. But I had a lot of friends that, had been involved in the system. So I had, my own ideas of what it was going to be like. And I went to jail and then, started on this process of entering into the legal system. And it was tough. I relapsed a few times, and each time I relapsed, they were pretty, intense relapses that resulted in, hospital stays and, back in custody with new charges for all over, different counties. And at that point, I was still fighting against probation. I really, like I had mentioned earlier, wanted nothing to do with them. I didn't want anything to do with the services that you guys provided, like nothing. And I, had heard about recovery coaches and, funding for sober living and all that, and I didn't want any part of it. And it wasn't until I ended up back in custody on after my relapse, and my probation officer came in and then told me, like, look, there's this funding. We are going to try and get you into sober living. And I had been to sober living before. I'd been in and out of sober living since I was 18. I was sitting in jail, and I realized how much of a blessing that this funding was, because not everyone gets it, right? Like, there's certain requirements or whatever it is. And I found out that I was accepted, and it was amazing because I was put into a sober living home, which taught me, responsibility, accountability, provided structure. We were responsible for chores and, having to be home at a certain time. And those seem like normal everyday things, but for some of us, I had none of that. I didn't have responsibilities. I had no idea what doing a chore, what, keeping up with daily life tasks was difficult. So that was super helpful. And then, you know, with the funding, it allowed me to, you know, work and get back on my feet and save it, like pretty much every dollar that I made, because it's, you know, covered for the first 3 months. And that was absolutely crucial to me. And I stayed in sober living for a long time. Yeah.
So it sounds like that's when some of the trust between you and the system started. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. That was a pivotal moment for me, was that one meeting with my probation officer when he came to visit me in jail. That's when this whole process started, and I started working with probation instead of against probation.
I will also point out that I think in some ways it's good to have some luck on your side. And being put on probation in Marin County at that time, I see you nodding your head, is fantastic. And with
Yeah.
Chief Daly standing back there, you know, I've been fortunate to go in and out of a lot of these probation departments and see their workings. And what you and your staff showed this morning is fantastic. I mean, you're really, I would say, one of the most client-centered probation departments in the state. And you can see it in what they do. And I think it's a model. It looks so much different than the first adult systems that many of us started in and remember working in. So it really means a lot to us to hear your story and to know that this wasn't just something where we did it because we got the funding. It mattered, and the funding mattered. And just really, really humbling to hear your journey, so thank you. Well, Brock, you're up. This is Brock, everybody. Brock has a pretty incredible story, and it was not quick and smooth for him either, from what I understand. I just met him before this, so I'm interested to hear what was your experience when you got to San Francisco County and how it was unique.
Okay, so there's so much that I want to say. So I'm from the South. I'm from Tennessee originally. So I always wanted to come to San Francisco. You know, after my mom passed away from drug addiction, and I really had no one left. I was homeless in Tennessee. So I came to San Francisco just because my big brother had brought me to San Francisco when I was younger, Big Brother Big Sister program, and I was able to see San Francisco, and I was like, okay, I know I can make it here when this day happens. I was preparing as a child, you know, for this, you know, I knew it was gonna happen. So there was a lot of loss and things being taken away from me as I was growing up, and the probation system in Tennessee, I can say, from my experience, is completely different than what it is in California, but it's they don't really care. It's really just for money. It's for money. They want to make money. And I was homeless. I just lost my mom. I just gone through so much trauma, you know, like I didn't know, you know, and I'm like, you know, I'm part of like LGBT. So like, there's already that, there's so much going on that's in my life that I needed support, and I had no one there to support me. So when I came to San Francisco with my partner, who actually 3 years ago overdosed and passed away, I was using drugs, and you know, but I was alone again, you know, and things happened, you know, and I got placed on probation, and you know, my first thought of probation was like, okay, well, you know I know I need help. I don't know where else I'm gonna get it, so maybe this is a good thing because I can't stop using drugs. So I got really good probation officers, and they just seemed really like sincere, like they really wanted to, you know what I mean? They like cared about you. Like it was actually part of like the city. Like in Tennessee, it's like privately owned places that like they don't care. And then I got connected with the reentry, the Community Assessment Services Center, which I had no idea about. I had never heard of probation offering any services like that. I was just like, what? There's a place you can go to and be safe, like, and receive services. So whenever I found out about that place, like, that was where I went, like, every day. Like, I was homeless, you know, the drugs had placed me in psychosis that I didn't even know. Like the drugs, like you can only imagine what drugs do to you. Like you don't even know, and then if you do it, like you know, like, and especially like after like the trauma and stuff, you really don't know what to expect. And that's what people at the CASC Center, the Community Assessment Services Center, they were there for me. I could go there whether I was under the influence or not, and they're gonna support me. They let me know, like, you can come here. We're not gonna take you to jail. We're here to support you. We want to get you help. We want to get you into a program. And there was a lot of times that I tried to get into program, but I kept relapsing. You know, like, you know, I was really sad. You know, I didn't know. I was homeless alone, and you know, I was just trying to grow up. And probation, I can say today, you know, I've been sober for 14 months. And it's not easy. It's really not easy at all. Like, but the services that probation has provided for me, such as like, I'm currently in transitional housing. They provide you, after you complete a treatment center, which I completed 6 months treatment, and it was the best thing that I could have done. You know, there were times that like I was placed in jail several times, and I just wanted to keep going with my addiction, but like this last time, I knew it was like, okay, this is getting really old. I'm just wasting so much time, and I got UCSF citywide forensic services. It's like their case management services. I got a really great case manager that was really there for me, and she was there for me from the beginning. And without having people like this in my life, like, I probably honestly would not be alive right now. I would, you know, but I'm currently still receiving services from the case management team. I'm in a transitional living called Drake. It's the Drake Hotel. It's through probation. It's probation funded, which I'm really grateful for. It's a year. They provided you to stay for a year there to save money, get your own place. So I'm currently in that. I work full time, save money. I'm able to provide for myself, and coming from the streets and being able to provide for myself now, I'm just like, oh my God, like this is really great. You know, I've never really experienced this before in my life ever. You know, it's just so there's so much more that I want to talk about, but I think I'm gonna stop there. Yeah.
We've got plenty more time for you to talk. So I'm curious, a real open question for you here. Who are you today? And what would you tell your past self? Who are you today, and what would you tell your past self?
So since graduating from the CCC program, so I've been clean since May 23rd, 2016, which also was the last time that I was arrested. And the services that I received through the CCC completely transformed me. And the most impactful of those is my thinking patterns. My thinking was completely distorted. And that's what led to my unhealthy behavior, that led to my unhealthy actions, which landed me in custody, in jail. So thankfully that all changed, and I now have a beautiful life, a life that I never ever thought was possible. I met my significant other in the CCC program as well, and he's also benefited from the services and has transformed his life as well, and together we've just built an amazing life. So I graduated in December of 2017, and at that time, I have a daughter. She's 7 years old, and I also have a 2-year-old daughter now, but I didn't see Bailey, my oldest daughter, for almost 3 years. And after I was about 6 months sober, I was served a petition for my rights to be terminated. And I fought, and I fought, and I fought, and I didn't give up. No matter what stood in my way, I got up and I fought my hardest to be the mother that I knew that little girl deserved, and I knew that I could be. And I I'm so excited and grateful to say that as of Monday, I now have joint legal and physical custody of Bailey. So also one thing that I think is really important is that I have been in college now for 3 years, and I will be graduating next year with 2 degrees, one in social work, or 2 associate degrees, one in social work and one in interdisciplinary studies, and I will be transferring to Sacramento State, where I will pursue my bachelor's degree and hopefully go on further in social work.
So what would you tell yourself on the day that you got booked in?
Oh my goodness. I was, honestly, at this point in my life, I was grateful to be safe and in custody. That's how hard the life was that I was living. So if I could give advice to myself, it would be the same exact advice that I would give to anybody on probation that is currently struggling. And that is to reach out, ask for help, and do the work. And don't give up. If there's obstacles that stand in your way, keep fighting and persevere, because you are worth it. And if you can believe it, you can achieve it. You're welcome.
You guys are amazing. This is the easiest job I've ever had. I like this. From now on, I don't get on a stage unless I have successful people with me. Kylie, who are you today, and what would you tell your past self?
I would tell my past self, I mean, honestly, it's incredible. Like, the difference of who I was and who I am now are 2 polar opposite people. Like, I never in my wildest imagination thought I would ever be sitting right here with all of you lovely human beings. You know, that's crazy. Like, that's insane. But I would tell my past self just to, you know, trust the process, and I would tell her to try and dig deeper and really see how strong that she was. You know what I mean? That was something that, like, I never gave myself credit for, you know, things that I had, you know, made it through and all that. Just, I would, you know, I would tell her to trust the process and, you know, don't ever give up, like you were saying. And, like, you know, I've dealt with a lot of really scary, difficult things on probation. You know, I went through drug court. I had a million different situations that happened there. And, like, no matter what, no matter how hard those were, I toughed it out. I showed up. I didn't use. And that's, like, that's the main thing. If I'm using, I'm not doing anything. I'm not showing up. I'm not going to court. I'm not doing whatever that is, whatever is being asked of me. But yeah, that's what I would say.
It sounds like you're even stronger today than you were before things even got bad for you. Like, you've gone through some times, and now what is the world like for you from here? You know, like, what's going to stop you now? It's amazing to listen to you speak. It's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Brock, who are you today, and what would you tell your past self?
Today, I feel like I'm a person who strives to be greater every day. I'm definitely someone who lives to be there for others. I feel like that's what my purpose. I feel like that's what God wants for me, is to be there for others. Now that I've experienced it, and what I would tell my previous self, you're gonna make it through. It's gonna be okay. Just don't give up.
Well, I mean, let's get one more round of applause for all of them and their bravery. this is really an awesome experience to hear this, and just quite inspiring. It makes me want to go back to my job and get started on other things. I mean, just again, thank you for having the bravery to be here. Let's get any last bits of wisdom for the crowd. Anything that you didn't get to say that you think is really important for this group of professionals out here to hear from your perspective.
So I forgot to mention that I did get accepted into a collaborative court, which is behavioral health court, and I think that this did affect my journey and my recovery because it is, it's a recovery-based court, and going from the other department to this one, it's completely different. Like, like they're really focused on you getting better. And I really needed that. I really need in my life people to like show me like, you're worth it. And, and I think that that's what that court did, as well as the rest of the probation department. So I just wanted to say that.
And I just want to say thank you. I'm living proof that this program works. And if it wasn't for all of you guys and the program in El Dorado County, the CCC program, I wouldn't have the life that I have today, and I don't know where I would be. But I know that my little girl would be without a mommy still. And I'm just extremely grateful for everything that everybody in this room does and the part that you guys have in changing the lives that you've changed, and especially mine. So thank you.
Kylie, bring us home. Bring us to the churros.
Churros, yay. I really just want to say thank you as well. I feel like we share a lot of the same feelings around this, and it's just like an overwhelming sense of gratitude to every single one of you and like the work that you put in. It's been really cool for me to sit here in this room with you guys and see that you guys have conferences like this, focused on, not so much punitive measures, but like what can we do to, help benefit our clients. That is amazing. Like I don't even have words to express that. Like Mindy said, without, the work that you guys put into us and the time you take to get to know us as humans and not just a case number, like that's why we're sitting here. And I am 100% positive that without probation and without drug court or, sober living and all the services that I got through this, I would 100% be dead and my son would be growing up without a mom. And I just applaud all of you for your efforts, and that's it.
Please join me in congratulating and celebrating their success, and let's show them some love.